In case you haven't figured it out yet, the federal government is not a big fan of us organizing. They don't want us to be able to form groups and be self-reliant, and that is becoming more and more apparent every day. And they're labeling any type of organized group as a problem that needs to be surveilled. And this is something that's being revealed right now in modern times. But we also know that there's lots of examples of them trying to eliminate congregations of any sort during the lockdowns. And back on April 10th of 2020, I put out a video about the fact that you were no longer allowed to congregate and what kind of reasons could be behind that besides the one that was being broadcast on the mainstream media. Now, move forward to 2023. And you have to understand that when you look at these examples and you understand that it's not just about one side of the aisle or the other, or one ideology over the other, it's for everybody in this entire country. When the federal government tries to either surveil or eliminate people's ability to congregate as an organized group, you have to question why. And what would be an answer to that question? Well, I would have to say that it's likely they're afraid of what these organized groups will be able to accomplish if there ever is some sort of emergency crisis that requires them to rely on themselves solely, right? The government is becoming more and more worried about their own people because they know that they're failing in the sense of being able to maintain a secure state, and they're also aware of where we're heading in the future regarding future wartime plans. So in order to maintain some level of authority and security, at least from their standpoint, throughout the country, they are trying to deal with organizations as best they can. And how does the government deal with organizations? Well, they generally surveil them, they infiltrate them, and at some point in time, they decide to get rid of them. However they do that, I mean, don't look any further than certain places in Texas, but however they do that is however they decide to do that. So recently it was revealed that the FBI and DOJ considers Catholics to be a problem. And look, I'm not Catholic. I'm not trying to sit here and be all upset about someone attacking me personally. I'm just saying that this is just an organized religion, right? But for some reason, Catholics are being considered an organized threat. A lot of this was brought to the forefront by Senator Hawley out of Missouri, I believe, but he was pressing Attorney General Garland about the situation, and apparently the Attorney General can't even cite or tell you just how many FBI sources they have implanted throughout Catholic churches in the United States of America. Now, look, like I said, I'm not a practicing Catholic or anything like that, but from my experience, Catholics tend to be the least of my concerns when I'm out in the middle of the night in a major city during a riot or a protest of any kind that turns violent, right? Usually it's just not the Catholics doing a lot of that. So, hey, you know what? That's where we're at right now. Why are the Catholics a problem? Well, they're a major, well-funded organization that has a very devout following. I'm trying to say devout following, and I just turned them both into two different words. And guess what? It's just an organization the government couldn't necessarily control if they really tried to. So they're doing their best they can right now. Now, like I said, this isn't just about, left or right or conservative or liberal. This is happening to everyone, which is why it should concern you. Also understand that it was recently revealed that the FBI paid a violent felon to infiltrate Denver, Colorado's racial justice movement. He drove a hearse full of guns and gear. He was a fighter in the French Foreign Legion and for the Peshmerga, and he had violent felonies, some of which were against minors. And he was paid by the FBI to spy on rioters during 2020. And this is all information that's coming out now. So yes, they're infiltrating and spying on the churches, they're infiltrating and spying on the protest groups and the racial justice advocacy groups and everybody else. And here's the thing, they're worried about organizations, right? As preppers, we tend to look at ourselves from a personal standpoint and say, oh, I don't want to talk about, what I have because the FBI or the NSA or CIA or who knows who else might be trying to spy on me. Well, it sounds like they're spending a lot of their resources on organized groups. And in these organized groups, which is something we need to have as preppers, there's a good chance that there's some attention being paid. And you should remember that the reason these things are happening is because the government is worried about what you'll be capable of if they start to fail. That's all it really comes down to. And that's why we need community and groups, because the government in many ways is failing and will likely eventually fail. And when that happens, who's going to come save you, right? It's not going to be the federal government. So you're going to want to rely on your neighbors and your associates and everybody else that you have in your local community. But they don't like that idea because it removes their ability to control you. So all of this is happening right this second. And look, here's the thing. Biden just came out reinstating his purpose of banning assault weapons. He specifically said, we're going to ban assault weapons again come hell or high water, and high capacity magazines. Now, the biggest supporter of this channel is Midway USA. And obviously they support me because a lot of the things I do revolving around some of those concepts, let's just say. But I think it's important that we have access to these things that they're trying to ban, because things will get very dangerous once they're no longer there to enforce any type of security or enforce any type of law or whatever else it is that they might not be able to do anymore for us. Because I think without rule of law is already the way it is in places like California, and it's moving through the rest of the country at a snail's pace possibly right now, but maybe very quickly if something more catastrophic occurs, right? So we need this stuff. And understand that although they're targeting us here in the United States, right? Organized groups, and I'm talking about Catholics, talking about racial justice protesters, talking about everybody who's organized, and simultaneously then telling you that we're going to ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines, which are just both forms of terminology used to try to scare people who don't know any better, right? We all know that. Now here's the thing, don't forget, I don't want you to forget this part though. We left $7 billion worth of military equipment in Afghanistan. That wasn't just assault weapons and high capacity magazines. That was a lot of stuff that you and I can't even buy if we want to, right? And we've given Ukraine $13 billion worth of weaponry since the start of the war, which was, in very many ways, a lot more than just assault weapons and high capacity magazines. But I will tell you that there was definitely some assault weapons and high capacity magazines in those shipments as well. So, for some reason, our government right now is more concerned about what we are doing than what anyone else around the world is doing, to the degree that they're willing to give the Taliban, as well as Ukrainian fighters, all of the things that they're trying to take away from us. At the same time, this isn't political. They're doing it to everybody, right? You like to think that, well, the FBI is in bed with the Democrat Party, right? That's just how it looks at this point in time. I guess, but if you think they're not spying on them too and infiltrating them as well, sounds like you're wrong, at least according to what happened in Denver, Colorado. So understand that we are at a very interesting time where the government is more afraid of us being able to organize and become cohesive as a group than they are regarding the foreign threats that exist right now all over the world. And that should concern you, because why do you think they're thinking that way? Well, if you were part of a government authority body, right, and you were worried about the number one priority, let's just call it, what's that right now for you? Well, if you were thinking that it was going to be a failed state, if you were thinking that the country was on the verge of collapse and you weren't really sure how things were going to turn out, where would your priorities be placed? Would they be placed on China? Would they be placed on crime? Would they be placed on Russia? Or would they be placed on the people who won't need you anymore once they figure out that you're no longer necessary? And then what does that leave you to do? Just saying.